What's up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of the Celtics Talk podcast as we ease in to the All-Star break. I'd love to be talking about a 10-game Celtics winning streak, but it's 9 games. So to keep the mood light after a disappointing loss, we've got Jeff Culver, the head coach at the University of Colorado at Colorado Springs. He was the Division II coach that recruited Derrick White to one of his only opportunities at that point coming out of high school, and sort of set him on the pathway to being an NBA superstar. So interested to jump in the time machine, get Jeff's take on Derrick's development and why he flew under the radar. Little local connection. Johnson and Wales could have landed him as a basketball player, not as a chef, but a fascinating little journey that has resulted in Derrick White being Boston's big trade deadline acquisition, and what they hope is a core piece to whatever comes next in the future. And then later we'll talk about where the Celtics stand. But I want to start with that interview. Here's my chat with Jeff Culver. All right, Jeff, I want you to take me all the way back. I've been doing my research, but it's just a fascinating story. That I heard Ime Udoka say that Derrick White had this kind of crazy path to the NBA. Take me back to when you first crossed paths, your first interactions with Derrick.
Yeah, it's been quite the journey for sure to be along with him. But it's, I guess, my first time I saw Derrick was a holiday tournament his senior year in high school. Saw him playing in a tournament at Cherry Creek High School, and he piqued my interest. This is when I was coaching at my previous spot, and started making some phone calls while I was watching him do his club coach and some other folks, and finding out some background info on who he was, and spoke to his high school coach after the game, and so from that point, started recruiting him. Had him on campus for a visit, at my last spot, and then he was my first campus visit at my current spot in Colorado Springs. And so, he certainly did some things in that game and to pique our interest and know that he had some upside. Not sure that I quite projected him as a first round draft pick, at that point, but we knew he had special in him.
So this is the wild part to me is, so you were at Johnson and Wales here in our neck of the woods, a cooking school, I mean, at its heart, but, how does Derrick White, an NBA talent, and obviously it wasn't obvious at that point, but how does he slip through the cracks at that point?
Well, I always like to say recruiting is an imperfect science, and I think a lot of times, you see it now, especially where, a lot of schools are looking at transfers, whether it's Division I bounce backs or junior college transfers, and they want guys that can play right away. So I think I'm in the minority with how we recruit, and we recruit primarily out of high school, and we look for guys that we can redshirt and develop and have them grow together. And we feel like, so at that point, we're not really looking at what can he do for me today. We're looking at what can he do for our program in 2, 3, 4 years, down the road. And so someone like Derrick, especially, who is still growing, and, you could tell by his hand size, shoe size, he looked like he was 12, his senior year in high school. And so you knew he had big upside, but you also knew that physically he just wasn't quite ready, for the college level yet. And so I think that you see it a lot, actually, kids slipping through the cracks or slipping down a level or sometimes slipping to where they're not getting recruited at all,
So give me the timeline, because at what point you're in the recruiting process, or you're looking for him at Johnson and Wales? When do you get the job at UCCS? And how, what's Derrick's process? He's like ready to commit to Johnson and Wales, and then he has to go to.
No. I don't know that Derrick would have ever attended Johnson Wales, to be honest with you. And it's ironic, and you guys have the mother campus there in Providence. We had a little smaller campus in Denver. I think 50% of the enrollment was culinary, although I never, in my 7 years there as head coach and athletic director, I never coached a cook, a chef. So there was always business students, sports management students there like that. But I don't know that Derrick would have ended up there, but, it was shortly after the end of my season at Johnson Wales in that spring that I got the UCCS job. I think my official start date was maybe May 1. And so, and again, my first campus visit, Derrick was the only one the carryover recruit. The only one that I was recruiting at Johnson Wales that I kept recruiting at UCCS. And so first campus visit. And so that must have been, I'm assuming May, that we had him on campus. And so I don't know, before that, we had been talking to him at Johnson Wales. We were a non-scholarship NAI, and so we weren't signing guys early, and it was a process that typically led into the summer months. So we were talking to Derrick. We had him in our gym on our campus, but I wouldn't say we were that far along that he was ready to commit to us by any means. I think he was still hoping, for some late recruiting action down the stretch.
So tell me about, you do get him there. I heard the plan was to redshirt him, but then he goes out at this summer pro-am out there and kind of shines. Take me through what you saw in the early stages of having him on board.
Yeah, and we knew, he did well in the summer league. He was doing well in the fall. He was one of our more consistent guards, but we still were going to redshirt him because we knew physically he could really use it. It'd be to his benefit to have a year to let his body catch up with the growth a little bit, get in the college weight room. And, we had some senior guards, that we were going to kind of ride out. And then we had a couple injuries, a couple academic issues. And next thing you know, we're looking around and thinking, we got to play this kid. And then Coach Sweet, who's a longtime retired high school coach from the Denver area, was a part-time assistant for me. And he called me after one of his 5 a.m. swim sessions and was thinking about that and said, Coach, we can't redshirt him. And I was thinking the same thing over my morning coffee. So, I think it was shortly after a scrimmage where our senior starting point guard got injured. And so, I'd just gotten done emailing Mr. White, Derrick's dad, and rationalizing how a redshirt year makes sense. And this is why we're doing it and all the benefits to it. And then I, quickly hit the other side of that argument and told him why, playing this year is going to be important for him. And he went from, our gold squad, redshirt lineup in practice. And the very next day we said, okay, we're doing this. And then we're going all in, and he was in the starting lineup. So, but he was ready for that. And, even though he was a young freshman, still physically maturing, he was still ready for that, and we saw some great growth in year one from him.
How much does he physically grow? Did he add more size once he got there? Did getting him in that weight room help bulk him up a little bit? Like how much did he transform not only on the court? But
I think in high school, he's probably 6'2". He probably got up to maybe 6'3" freshman year when he came to us, and probably 6'4" by the time he was on the way out. But really it was more about just filling out, and getting a little bit stronger. And you saw the progression a little bit in year one, a little bit in year two, and a lot in year three. And then I think that the final step was his redshirt year in Boulder. So it progresses like it would for most, kids when they finally kind of stop growing vertically. They're able to catch up and put some weight on and gain some muscle mass in the weight room.
At what point do you realize he maybe has a future beyond the college level or beyond the D2 level? Was there like an aha moment? Was it that early stages where you're learning about him?
I don't know if there was really one moment. I think it was sort of a cumulative effect over the first couple of years where we knew he had special in him, and we knew that we got ourselves a steal here, that he's a legitimate Division I kid. As far as the post-college playing, we weren't quite sure, but, the second latter half of sophomore year, and certainly that off season and then heading to the junior year, we were having discussions and in communication with a half dozen front offices, we had scouts and front office execs and whatnot through the league that knew about him. And obviously when you get those calls, you know that they have found him, and that there's a path in front of him, and still early at that point to really project how much success he'd have and would he make a roster and all that stuff. But we knew at least that was in the conversation.
What's that like? Because again, as you're going through this process, Now that you can take a step back, 10,000-foot view, I've heard him say that without you, he wouldn't be where he is. And like, how does that feel that if, those things didn't fall into place, would he have slipped through the cracks? Would he have had the chance to develop? How much pride do you take in how far he's come?
Well, it's been pretty cool to be part of the journey, for sure. And he's had so many people around him, it certainly was not just about me or what we did with the opportunity. There's so many different phases and stages for him along this growth, and so many people involved in it. And the cool part is that he hasn't forgotten anybody along the way, and I think the cool part about Derrick is, I've never met anyone that does not like him. And he remembers his roots. He remembers all of those along his path that have helped him. He stayed loyal to them. You go to his draft party, which was a pretty cool event, and you got people from middle school hoops, coaches, and high school and club and our program and CU Boulder, and then I'm at his wedding in August, and he's got people from the Austin Spurs as well as San Antonio front office and teammates, and like everyone, he just keeps collecting folks along the way, and all those bridges are intact. So I just feel fortunate to be part of that. It's a special situation, special stories, a special young man, and so to be part of that path for him has been pretty cool. It makes me want to go out and recruit more pros. It's been a fun journey. We'd love to do this again.
Tell me about that personality. Like, what don't we see? He's been an initial foray here in Boston. He's been just what the scouting report said, quiet. But like you said, it feels like he just has this natural gravitational pull for people to like him. What's he like behind the scenes?
Yeah, he's a goofball. He's a big time goofball. Him and Alex Welsh, who were roommates and best friends through their careers at UCCS, are both just, sort of class clown goofballs, just hilarious to be around. And then they can flip that switch, when they needed to. And so fun to be around, though. Good kid, hates to speak in public. We'll try to dodge your podcast. We'll try to dodge post-game interviews. We'll try, we retired his jersey and made him stand up in the middle of the gym and speak, and he hated that. I think he hated me for that. But if you get him, off camera and without the public speaking element, easy to talk with, always going to crack jokes, and again, just very personable young man.
One of the things I thought was interesting was I read something where you said some of your conversations with him, even since he's been at the NBA level, have just been sort of keeping his confidence up, which, again, here's a kid who came out of, I keep saying nowhere. I know it's like, not nowhere, but, he ascends this ladder, and yet you still have to tell him like you belong there. And I'm sure he knows by this point, but how weird is it that, again, that's sort of his personality, where he's just always kind of fighting to show that he belongs.
Yeah. And I think there's a couple angles to that. I think one, you get a lot of athletes that are competitive at a high level and that are hard on themselves, and I feel like, we had that early with Derrick, where we tried to instill that next play mentality. And I have that. He's not the only athlete I've had to deal with that, and a lot of the great ones have that, where they'll get so upset, they want to make every right play, and obviously the game of basketball is very liquid in nature, and you got to be ready to move on. It's not start stop like baseball or football, and so you got to be ready to make that next best action. So I think sometimes with him hanging his head and whatnot was, and the self-confidence piece was, he was hard on himself. We need to get over that. And then I do think there's early on, and I think he's I think he's beyond that now, but it's been a process. You get under recruited, so you got that chip on your shoulder, and part of you is thinking, hey, do I belong? And then obviously he asserted himself well enough at our level that he did belong. And then, redshirt year at Boulder, I think he gained some confidence because he's practicing with those guys and he knows what he can do. But that's a process too, right? And it's a different stage that you're stepping onto and a bigger audience. And so a little bit of a process to make sure, you're like, okay, this is a big jump, and do I still belong? And then you get to the next level, and I think the spending time and the way that San Antonio and Coach Popovich and company developed their young talent was great for Derrick, and because he had a little bit of time with Austin, and he had a little bit of time to kind of get back and forth from Austin to San Antonio, and through that process, I think he was figuring that out in his own head that, do I belong? Okay, I do belong, and then you see it start going from, okay, not only do I belong, but I can excel at this level as well. And I think that, I still feel, and I've talked to him about this, like his best basketball is still in front of him. And I know a lot of people look at these 4-year guys, right, that go to college for 4 years and graduate, and they're not as sexy as the one and done guys who have all this upside and potential. And you're talking about ceilings, and but Derrick, because of his path and the way he has progressed, I still feel like he's not at his ceiling. Like, obviously he's going to end up shooting the ball better in Boston once he gets to a comfort level with what they're doing offensively and everything like that. And he's had some couple injuries, and then the COVID stuff, and it seemed like just when he was kind of getting back into the swing of things, he'd have a little setback, and it's tough to jump back into it. So yeah, I'm excited about his progression. I think he's over that whole "do I belong" phase, but I do feel like he still has his best basketball in front of him.
What were your emotions when he gets traded? Are you like, do you have to switch your league pass from San Antonio games to Boston? What's it like watching when you're invested?
That league pass, that's been my best investment maybe, that I've ever made. That's been fun. I'm a big NBA fan anyways, and I was born in Detroit, and so I'm following my Pistons. So that game was kind of strange last night, but I have dual interest there. But it's been great. And when he got drafted to San Antonio, I was excited because I'd always been a fan of Coach Popovich and what they do with that program and how they share the ball, play defense and pass to an open teammate, right? And that falls right in line with how Derrick plays. So I was ecstatic about that. And then, the trade, I think the initial, and I think Derrick felt this way too, right? The initial feeling is like, dang, like, we're, that San Antonio's making some moves and getting some draft picks and whatnot. And they got some good young talent, that can play. So not total surprise, but definitely caught you off guard a little bit. But the fact that it's Boston and the direction that the history, but also the current state of the Celtics and the direction that they're heading, and with the front office and the coaching staff and everything like that, and the familiarity that Derrick has with the USAB experience with a bunch of those guys and experience with some of the staff members, I thought, well, boy, if you're going to get traded, Beast going to Detroit, So I was thrilled for him, and I love the Pistons, but I was thrilled for him and still am, and think it's a great fit for him and for the Celtics. And so I'm just excited to see this process, as they're getting acclimated with each other.
I can't even imagine the swing of emotion in the Culver household when he makes that steal in the final 6 seconds last night. I don't know if you're rooting for, I have some Detroit Piston fans that are just like, hey, let's get another number one pick. So they were conflicted, but it's fun to see. Tell me about his dad, because his dad was evidently a big Celtics fan, and that's part of the buzz up here too. But like, it also sounds like he was pretty influential in making sure his son found a good spot to hone his basketball career when he was younger.
Yeah, his dad's awesome. And, if you ever just want to talk basketball, or baseball or football or anything, Richard's the guy. Passionate sports enthusiast like we all are. And he's been fun, because he, during his career at UCCS, great to talk to about games, and he was dialed in with the conference, and he's all in, and so, he knows the game. I've texted with him quite a bit too after games, whether Derrick's playing well or not playing well or whatever the case may be. I've kept in touch with him, and that's been kind of fun along this journey because, I know he's all in and has been excited about it, and is equally excited about this new opportunity for Derrick.
That's great. Let's wrap it up here. What do you think he can most thrive with the Celtics? You kind of hinted at it, the sort of the familiarity with the staff. I think it's interesting that Brad Stevens came out in the aftermath and sort of said, this is the guy we think pairs perfectly with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Did he always have these sort of ability to just make other players better, the unselfishness? I mean, obviously he learned some of that in San Antonio, but how well can he fit with this Boston core as you watch from afar?
Yeah, and I think it just fits into a skill set. He's a legit two-way combo guard that does not need the ball in his hands. And so when you got two primary scorers in Boston, he's fine with that. Like, you don't have to worry, right? Sometimes you got to trade, like, oh, is there enough shots to go around and all these things? Like, Derrick can be impactful in a game without shooting the ball at all, and even, you can see these few games he hasn't shot well. And, he's still, grabbing rebounds, blocking shots, getting deflections, getting steals, taking charges, all the things that he can do off ball on both ends of the floor is huge. And so then you get another primary ball handler when you need it. Marcus, hopefully his ankle's doing well, but if he's out for any longer period of time, you got another guy that can handle the ball. When Marcus is in, you got a guy that can play off the ball. You got a guy that can guard multiple positions and give some other guys a break on that end of the floor. He's going to rotate. He's going to be unselfish. He's going to make the right basketball winning play. And for a team like the Celtics that are trying to climb that Eastern Conference ladder, and you got so many good pieces. I just think that he's a very interesting, piece for them that's going to, in my opinion, be able to get them a step closer to the postseason goals.
Nice. Well, I know you diminished your part in it, but every sign points back to you, so you should be quite proud of what you did to get Derrick to this level. And well, now I'll let you get back to finding the next NBA superstar out there for UCCS. Jeff Culver, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate you. Thanks much. Just a cool story. I mentioned on one of the national broadcasts this week, the Johnson Wales thing, and I hadn't heard that part of it, and it's kind of fascinating. The reports are Derrick does not have culinary skills, but we'll have to ask him about that when we see him. If he'd ended up there trying to start the basketball journey, it just goes to show you you're not a finished product in high school. Sometimes you're an NBA star, and it just takes a little while. So it's going to be fun to see Derrick blossom here, especially as he gets more comfortable, because he has fit in really well in the early going. The numbers have been off the charts. Almost had that. You heard me say to Jeff there, he had the steal at the end of the Detroit game. I'm thinking, here he is. He's going to be the hero, especially making Marcus Smart-like plays when Marcus Smart isn't out there. But Celtics fall a little bit short. Jason Tatum made that jumper. We'd be feeling a lot better. But as we go into the All-Star break, just kind of trying to digest. As frustrating as that loss was, I think there's been just so many good things for this team. Obviously, their play on the defensive end, chief among it. They've just gone to another level, really, since the new calendar year, about 4 points better than any other defense in the NBA in that span, slowly creeping up to what should soon be number one in defensive rating. They'll eventually slide past the Golden State Warriors if they continue to play defense like they have. And I know there's some consternation about, well, they feasted on bad opponents and then you go out and lose to the Pistons. So what have they really learned? But I do think the eye test tells you that they're going in the right direction, that things are coming together. Last night is a reminder that you can't really throttle down at any point, that this offense isn't good enough. Even on a night when Jaylen Brown had, I think, 31 points and that you still have to be crisp and value every possession. It's a good reminder that you have to bring that defensive intensity every night, even as you're thinking about maybe spending a week on a beach and getting a little break from the grind of the NBA season. I hope the Celtics are able to sort of unpack and digest and reboot and come back with the same defensive intensity that has defined the 2022 calendar year for most of it, besides a couple blips along the way. But 9 out of 10 to finish it. I think 11 out of 13 since Marcus Smart came back from COVID. And that's a big part of all this as well. I think Marcus has been great. Just, you see his absence there last night. Derrick White did a nice job filling in, but Marcus has been the one pushing the pace on the offensive end and getting that assist number up. Celtics are, I think, up 5% in assist percentage since the new year. And just, it feels like a lot of what Ime was striving for this team is buying into on both ends of the floor. I think Brad Stevens has been rewarded for a little bit of his boldness at the trade deadline. Well, we'll see how we view this trade down the road, but certainly adding another core piece that sort of fits well with your pillars there in the Jays and the core four overall. If they have now 5 pieces of their core moving forward and they just got to kind of tinker, that's the big question to me moving forward. Are you looking for that next superstar, or are you just content with what you've got on this roster and kind of filling in around the fringes? We'll have a lot of time to break that down going forward. But like I said, I think Celtics fans should be positive. If they play defense to the level they've played it in the past few weeks, they will be a contender in any series, regardless of who they match up with. But certainly, you can't trip up against teams like Detroit if you want to get into that conversation about a top 4 team in the Eastern Conference. Give yourself home court, give yourself maybe an easier opponent than maybe drawing the Bucks or, Philly or whatever it might be in the first round. It's going to be fascinating to see over the final 20 games how teams start jockeying for position. But if we had done this podcast at the actual halfway point of the NBA season, the 41 games, probably wouldn't be as bullish as we are right now. But the last 20 have given the Celtics a whole bunch of optimism about what can become of this season, and even deeper into the future about what they can be. I need everybody, as you're grabbing your suntan lotion and your plane tickets and heading off for February vacation, to go like and subscribe to our YouTube page as well, and on your favorite podcast app. Buckle up. We're downshifting slightly as we go into the break, but you can still watch Jason Tatum in the All-Star game on Sunday, and then things get really interesting right out of the break. A week from today, on Thursday of next week, playing the Nets, the new look Nets. Not going to be as easy as these lopsided wins that they had against the Nets and the Sixers, but a lot of encouraging things going on for this Celtics team, and eager to see how they finish out and where this thing goes. We'll catch you next time on the Celtics Talk podcast.